I would start by talking a bit about reform and then gradually call in people that were involved in the project. This is the key visual for the session that I wanted to see, because usually these things just go and nobody knows about them. So the Reform Project is our experimental program for rethinking cultural work. And I like the word experimental because really it's such a emerging moment for us, in the sense that we have been thinking about it, we have been exploring the topic for a while now, but over these last 2 years we had a dedicated framework in which we wanted to do things a bit differently, let's say, and we wanted to find other approaches to cultural work, approaches that are more centered on care and equity and sustainability and solidarity. And I know all of these are very big words, but we wanted to try anyway to see if we can grasp a bit of them. Basically, this format of the project started in March 2024, and it will end in November 2025. So we're very, very close to finishing one of the chapters in what reform can be. But I do believe that it's more a constant, ongoing process rather than a structured framework. And I think that financing and these ways of finding the words for something are just helpful because they give you a timeline and they give you a structure, but the wanderings keep going with us. And what, like our intentions, or what we hoped to build during these 2 years, was basically came from the need to create a community of practice. And with that community to kind of, I like this image that I'm going to share, to kind of go from a centralized perspective of culture and the cultural sector to more of a constellation of the cultural sector. I have a soundtrack for that. Feel it. That's it. That's the inner struggle. So to go more towards a constellation approach, because that's where we can still find energy to nurture connection instead of geography, financing resources. I know that all of that matter, and I know that all of that justifies in a certain way either precarity or prosperity. But I think connection is something that really helps us pull through, and knowing that people here and people there and people everywhere are dealing with the same things and are hoping for the same things, it's a very reassuring thing. And that's what we wanted, to nurture that desire. And we tried to get there in different ways. And those ways implied learning to slow down, learning to say no, learning to not go towards a product, but towards a process, learning to rewire the brain and question the brain and say, I don't want to do this like this. I don't want to promise a deliverable. I don't want to work for this in this way. And it was very challenging, I think. And it was challenging because I do feel that after all these months of being involved in the project, I feel that when the time comes to prioritize this type of conversation, we still think of the task list first. And it's fair, I believe, but it's also a reality that got translated into the different formats that we worked with. And the formats were workshops, community meetings, a retreat for artists and cultural professionals, mentorship sessions, artistic residencies, a research on the socio-economical and health state of artists and cultural professionals working in Romania. And I will try to talk a little bit about all of that, but at the same time, like I said, I will invite people to talk about those from their own perspective as well, just so that you can grasp more subjective opinions and impressions than just mine. So with the workshops, what we tried to do was to create access to different models and examples of initiatives that are prioritizing the same questions, that are working with different values. We worked with Lars that talked about the value of culture and how do we see the value of culture and where do we place it and where do we place care in culture. Last year we also met with Biljana Tanurovska from Skopje, from Lokomotiva, to talk about the power of soft values in how we work. And well, we had various guests that we were very happy to join our circle and to give us an insight into other ways to do it or other ways to think about it. And maybe that was good because we are so used to thinking about the problems of the cultural sector and the difficulties of that. And with these workshops, we wanted to have a little glimpse into solutions of, is there life after this? Yes, there is. Is there another way to do this? Yes, there is. So in a sense, it was our crumbs of hope that we tried to give to the community. And most of the workshops took place online, just so that we could foster access to people from across the country, regardless of where they come from. We did have a physical workshop this year that we shared with Ioana here. That was very, very intimate, and once again it reinforced the idea that people need these spaces of conversation. For the community meetings, I really, really hope that the people in the room will bring their perspective on that, because what I've seen happening over the past year was very, very emotional and strong. Community meetings are something in between a working group and a support group, because we ourselves tried to understand the purpose of us meeting regularly. But what was nicer than this attempt was the fact that we did show up regularly, and that's very hard to do. Like, I understand that the difficulty, like I understand that frequency is a privilege, and the fact that we managed to meet month by month to discuss about what hurts was a privilege, and I'm very, very glad to have seen it happen. And it was curious to see how intentions change, how we come to the circle with one intention, and then it becomes something different, and then we question it collectively, and we question it, okay, how can we help each other? How can we do something together? How can we take responsibility for the group that is just not one person doing it, but every person doing it? I think we're still trying to negotiate our own relationship with that, but it is still very valuable. Then last year, one of the highlights of the project was the retreat that we organized for artists and cultural professionals. And again, I think I'm not even sure if it's worth to take format by format to tell you just how meaningful it was for me. But I think each format brought forward with more intensity that we need this, and that we need to question how we work. We need to put these problems on the table, but we need enough space to detach from those problems eventually, to go and scream into the forest if that's what makes us feel a bit freer. And I know it sounds poetic, and maybe this presentation is not a technical presentation. We had 20 participants suffering from burnout at the retreat, and all of us cried in a circle. That happened as well, but the idea of reform is more in the substance of the project rather than in what it effectively did or didn't do, and that's what I want to send forward somehow. I'm not sure if I manage. If I manage, please raise a hand. Thank you so much. No, I think again, everything got basically became a variation of this, right? We did mentorship sessions that we don't know what happened there because they were individual for artists and culture professionals. Mahir, Rarița, Milica will tell you more about that. And we have artist residencies that, again, you will hear about it from the people who are part of it. But I think what these formats did was that they proved that we can have so many ways in which we can do this. And that what we need to prioritize in how we think our financing or how we think our structures of programs is exactly that. How can we trick the system in a way that we can make room for these formats, for these conversations, for these spaces that we don't always have to have access to. I was thinking a bit about the circles conversation, and that maybe it was invasive for me to want to know what you talked about, because exactly that type of privacy that has room to happen in very small circles is one that matters, and I think gradually that one can be equally significant into creating change. I think I will finish here because I don't have another slide, but you can imagine it was great, and you will hear from the people who were part of it how it actually felt. And I would call everyone at once. I would call Ioana to join this beautiful stage, even though she doesn't want to. I will call Marius. I will call Mahir. I will invite Milica. And Ioana, where are you? I will invite you too. For now, and then we will keep calling people on, so don't worry, we have 2 hours to spend together. Rarița, do you also want to be here? Pretty please. No, I can take whatever. I will sit with Milica because we wear the color of the event. Everyone who doesn't wear green, well, I don't know. Tomorrow. Okay, so if Rarița, if you want to add to what I've been, she doesn't want to add. Then I'm passing it over to Ioana. She asked me today, why do you want to start with me? But I want to start with her because she's a person that has been so immersed into the project, even if she didn't want to. She has been she has been part of the co-designing of certain things. She was part of the first meeting that we did that had the role of converging, like calling people from different corners of the country and Milica to bring together ideas and map the needs of the sector and what can we do to address those needs and how can we work together as a community. She was also part in the retreat and co-designing the agenda for that and being desperate with me to find answers and ways to do it. And so she was a lot. She coordinated the mentorship sessions. She took a lot of the hard work onto her shoulders, and I wanted her to boast about it today.
Thank you. I was really hoping Rarița will have add.
I think you have a button there.
Now? Yes. Now it's working. So, I'm terrified by conferences, but I'm less terrified about this one because Lorena and Rarița are here, and I don't know why. I had something else prepared for the beginning, but now I feel like telling the story of how Lorena and I met. We were on a rooftop at a party that was going very well for everyone except for us. We were not having so much fun as the others did. So we stayed there and talked about our feelings. And this is how I met Lorena and how I got into Reform. I don't know exactly what's the connection between the two, but yeah, this is how it worked. And I bring this because I feel somehow Reform, it's this, is people at a party who say, I don't feel good at this party. And I think what we tried, or what's my perception of what Reform does and what I try to bring into Reform is this change or this micro context in the party in which people start to feel less inadequate maybe or more joyful at the party even if they are sad. So I'm now both talking about my experience as a facilitator and co-designer, but I'm also really truly talking about my experience as a part of the Reform community and like as a participant or however you want to call it. And when I met reform, let's say, I was in a time of my life where I realized that the way I work does not really work for me and for the ones with whom I work. So it was very clear to me that there is a need for change, and it became somehow of a central subject in my practice. So it was great that someone else did the project, so I didn't have to invent myself a project. And I think it was also wonderful that this happened with Rarița and Lorena. Because from many points of view, there were no frictions between us. I don't know how, it's a happy accident maybe, but there were no frictions in between us. And this is something that's, it's very hard for me to find. And I think this somehow mirrored in all our processes. And I'm probably over the time I have. I think when we co-design things or when we thought of doing stuff, there are always two things that are part of every experience. One is the context, like what we call maybe a space, a safe space, or whatever we want to call it, and the content. And we were always, I think, maybe I'm mistaken, but we were always focusing on the content, on what do we bring, what are the themes, what do we deconstruct, what do we imagine, blah, blah, blah. But I think it was always actually the context that was most valuable for every of us. And now I don't know, it's maybe 1 year and something, or 2 years since we're doing this. And for me, every iteration of reform became somehow of a point of reference to how I would like the art sector to look like. And it's not to say that I have the expectation that all of the art sector looks like reform, but I do know that in this context I felt safer, I felt I can really say what's in my mind without feeling I might step on eggs or something. And it always, in the end, became so strong that the fact that I know that once a month we meet to talk, it's enough to feed the whole of the month that we don't meet to talk. Because I know there is this kind of space in which I can always go to, and it will be good for me. So I think, yeah, that's probably the most important thing I have to share. Thank you. And I think now I'm passing the microphone to Mahir or Milica.
Yes, hello. I was privileged this year to coach, mentor, or whatever it is called, 25 cultural operators or artists from Romania. I say it is a privilege because that's not the first time that I have done it. In the past years, there were similar programs, and I coached other cultural actors from Romania. And each time when I'm in Cluj, and each time when I meet those people, I think how brilliant it is, and how lucky Romania is to have all those brilliant people. I really feel so. This is how I see. It is so vibrant, and everyone is so authentic, and all these life stories are so impressing. But this is my feeling of what I did. Now, if I turn the perspective to the other side, so far in my lifetime, I have done cultural management. I have been a cultural entrepreneur. I teach in 3 universities, artists, cultural managers, And I have run a lot of such meetings within the context of the association that I had in Istanbul, and among all the formats that I have done or facilitated in order to develop the cultural sector, independent cultural sector, including personal development of the cultural actors, I find this format, plus maybe the retreat format, the most effective ones, because you know, I have been a cultural manager myself, and during my career, I really had to discover everything from scratch. No, my education was engineering, so I mean it helped me to develop myself also in cultural management. But at the end, I saw, and I still see in others, that actually this profession, I mean, there are lots of spectrum of professions. All the cultural professions, let's say, they have to discover what they have to do in their lives from scratch. So every cultural manager, it's unlike a banker, you know, or an engineer. It is, you don't know how your career is going to develop. It is partly planned and partly improvised. And life shows you how it will develop itself. So this is the main difficulty, I think, of the cultural operators or cultural actors, let's say, including artists, to live their lives and to be successful in their professions, or live their professions, let's say. It's full of unknown and uncertainties, so it is full of anxiety. And it's a difficult life path, but on the other side, it is mostly such authentic lifestyles that I find ourselves lucky to live this kind of life, although we may have financial difficulties or other kinds of difficulties caused by being in this difficult sector where there is a little money and less opportunities, but a lot of humanity. So thank you for giving me this privilege of being in this profession, and thank you all who have participated to my sessions, and I'll give the okay.
Thank you, Mahir. Hello. Okay. I just feel like we need to say what the mentorship sessions were, maybe, just like in 2 words. I mean, it's very simple, so it's not going to take a lot of time. We were 4. I don't know how to call us, whether we're our title, but we were 4 interlocutors, let's say, for a quite large group of cultural workers from Romania, sort of a sounding board for the people who wanted to have a reflection, conversation, one-on-one, in the course of 4 hours, was it? No, how many hours did we have? So it was a very simple format, and it was done online, I guess, for most of us, for all of us, in a very free format. So we kind of arranged it the way that suited us, and it was just talking one-on-one. And I wanted to make that clear because I also want to come back to the name of mentorship sessions, and I understand that it's a shortcut. But where I find this really deeply meaningful is that it wasn't really a mentorship program, and that it wasn't, or at least that's how what impressed me the most and how I lived it, is that I was not put in a role of somebody who is an expert in anything. Nor were the people that we talked to put in the position of needing to be mentored. It was very much a two-way street, and I think that that's probably one of the most profound values of this, that it provided a very horizontal one-on-one platform for things to be exchanged. I don't want to talk about what we talked about because it's none of your business. But I do want to say that a lot of if I can generalize, a lot of the conversations were about transition and change, were about changing from a practice to another, transitioning from a way of working to another, thinking about change, performing change. I also can say that a lot of it was about finding our place in an ecosystem, understanding maybe the different layers of the cultural ecosystem, and then figuring out if there is a place and what that place would look like, or how to imagine that place. And I also think that a lot of the conversations were kind of confirming the data that you mentioned this morning, which are about this radical multitasking, about this performing a multiplicity of roles, and that really lead to a set of skills and competencies that are somehow deeply ingrained in the ways of working, and we mentioned them, and they're almost a dirty word: resilience, resourcefulness, adaptability. But all of this somehow put in a framework which is deeply unadapted to that practice, which is not responding well to change and transition, which is not responding well to performing multiple roles, which is not responding well to people who want to create their own place in the ecosystem. So somehow what I come back to after all these conversations, and what is confirmed over and over again, is the necessity to rethink how we do things, not trying to fit people with these unbelievable multiple skills into a mold that is existent, but how can we change the mold? And in a way, it's to refer back to what you were saying, Ioana, how do we not only make this party accessible for us, but also how do we kind of change the party to make it more suitable to the persons, to the people who we are? And I think that Reform was really a rare occasion to have this open and free space, an open circle somehow, or maybe even extended concentric circles of exchange, where you could safely come together and just figure it out together, without any hierarchies, without any, maybe in the most gentle and careful way. So yeah, I join Mahir also. Thank you for that opportunity. Thanks.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Yes, because I realized that I started with something, but I didn't conclude. Then I realized when when Milica talked about it. Why I told this story of how a cultural manager is building his or her life from scratch, and everything is new, and there are lots of uncertainties, and so I think it is very valuable to help those people who are actually who have actually succeeded a lot in their lives, but there are some issues where they are stuck. You know, actually, what we did, I mean, I can say it from my own side, was just to help in some points which make those people the coaches get stuck at one point. You know, it's not about like helping an art student how to build up their lives. They are already built and successful. Actually, that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
We go with them? Okay. Ioana? No, don't be concerned. Ioana and Marius, I think it's, again, a valuable input coming from the fact that you have been so active in the reform community. So if you want to talk about it.
It's on now. I just assumed that we're going to start first talking about the residency, because I think that's from the residency the community meetings kind of happened. I don't remember exactly how I ended up in them, but I'm very grateful for them. I think the artists and the people, because not everybody's in the art specifically or has an artistic practice, went to the residency and they decided to keep the group and extended it. So we kind of decided to meet every month, once a month. And then at one point, because our discussions were going in different directions, depending who were participating, who wanted to facilitate something, I decided to offer my harvesting, developing skills, evolving skills to kind of take notes of the meetings, to see at one point where this group is going, where these discussions are going. So I've put them up on your left hand side on the wall if you want to go over them, if you need someone to assist you, because most of them are Romanian. I'm here and also my colleagues as well. But I was looking at them and I'm really glad that we took this, because it went from discussing everything, which is very important, to what is going on in the world, the need to have a safe and then a brave space. That's something that I've learned recently. But a brave space is not available without a safe space, that we also need to work on. It's not a given. To actually deciding what do we want to bring in a space, and then have a facilitating meeting with MSHET to talk about what kind of definitions of safetiness we gather in us, to understand what kind of safety we want to bring in a space, because we have different definitions depending on your trajectory as a human being. That was very interesting for us to do together, and I think in the last meeting, because we were fewer, we decided to talk, we kind of not decided, but we just went on talking about rituals. And somehow we went also to rituals of funerals and so on. So it depends on the meeting, it can go in different ways. And then we started to also open up our meetings slowly, because we also want to grow in roots and to try to mediate that space that we have, but open it to other cultural workers and artists that we think would be great to have this space to interwoven something together. So that's the perspective that I'm speaking from. So yeah, if you need me later on, I'll be gladly to take a walk in between our harvesting community meetings. Thank you.
Bon. So I was trying to define my perspective. So for those of you who don't know, I'm an ex-IT professional. So I'm not ready to identify as an artist, but I'm also courageous sometimes to do that. I'm an alumni of the community meetings, the retreat, and the artistic residency. And I'm here to give testimonials about them. The reason I did this short introduction is to position myself as a witness that has maybe a different perspective. So maybe I don't really have all the traces of the patterns of the cultural work. Maybe I don't really have the tension between the funding structures and the beneficiaries. So I'm a bit of an outsider here. But as an outsider, I have a tendency to come in and I see this panel doing maybe some of that, and I think we do that a lot when we meet, to come in with this highest level of abstraction and concepts, and we talk about like rituals and policy and freedom. And I think during the retreat, we had this exercise of reimagining the whole cultural sector, and we had the CEO of gentleness, and we had the chief officer for memory or for equity. So we did these mental exercises, right? And it was such a rich experience. But if I look back a year from then, and I say, what happened then? I do remember that the strongest laugh was in the swimming pool, and I was restless in my room because I was missing out on something important. It wasn't during the scheduled meetings that were crafted by Ioana, and they were amazing from the design interaction perspective. They were very well done. But the choux à la crème that we made together, right? We baked the choux à la crème, and I did a 45 minutes presentation about croquembouche, which is just a pile of choux à la crème, which are small eclairs, if you don't know what they are. And I think the strangeness of me being afraid to dance for most of my life, but dancing for 8 days straight because I felt safe in that retreat. And it was not, it was that kind of dance, right? On the floor, mimicking kittens. It wasn't like disco, right? So you had to get personal with the walls or something. And what I want to get at is that there's such a big distinction between the vocabulary we use in policy and in reporting and the takeaways from most of the projects. And the takeaways are the smiles and the choux à la crème, but it's very hard to report on that. Like if we said 20 people laughed for 45 minutes baking choux à la crème, that's very hard to put in a report, right? And I think this is one of a big takeaway that I have with all the meetings and the mentorship sessions, that wellness and equilibrium and witnessing others, because I think we've done a lot of that in the retreat, we witnessed others, are silent. They're tranquil. And in an attention economy, it's hard to report on the silence, right? How do you report that you witnessed something? What's the number for that, right? So I think for me, that's the challenge, and we, in our group meetings, in the community meeting, recently touched on this, is that wellness feels strange. Like if we create right now a residency where there are no deadlines, no pressures, you have all the time and the money in the world, it will feel strange. You don't know how to interact. We didn't exercise well-being. After so much resilience and survival, we don't have the muscles for sitting in comfort with well-being. So what happens is we joke about it, but we fall back to give me a deadline. Okay? Give me something so I can feel some pressure, so I can do some kind of tragic work, right? And it's not all good. Like I'm painting a very nice story here. But it's only a painting because part of the artistic residency was a deliverable. And last week, a week before the deadline, which is yesterday, we fell back to our ways. We said, okay, we need to create something. I worked a full night. And I think we started the residency with a joke that we were paid to do nothing, yes, let's do nothing. But when we first started to stay and do nothing, it felt weird. And we said, we're paid for this? Like, this doesn't feel right? Because you're conditioned for productivity. And then after 2 months of meeting every week, we were like, well, the money wasn't that great, so probably it already expired. So even if we didn't do much, it's fine. Like, the money wasn't that much, so we didn't do that much, it's fine. But then again, the joke is still whether the contract is there, whether you are worthy, whether you delivered on the value that you were paid for, right? We're in this mindset of what's our utility here? And then the joke by the end was, and that this is my joke towards Mihai, who invited me in the residency, was, I think you're tricking me, Mihai. I think you're conditioning me in this Pavlovian reflex that every Monday evening I try to work on my artistic practice. And so far I resisted this because I don't want to, but after the residency is over, after the money has run dry, after there's no structure and nothing, I will be conditioned to create art. I think that's the trick. And this is kind of like a reverse denial kind of thing. And this is my closing, but I think the reason I'm doing these jokes here is because we are not being tricked, but it feels weird to practice care and solidarity and well-being because we didn't exercise it. We're not accustomed to it. And when you're given that, it feels foreign, unfamiliar, and you resist it. And my hope is that we sit through this uncomfort, we recreate these types of settings. For me, this is the big win. The big win is that I felt the discomfort of well-being. That's the big win. The small loss is that I ran away from it and I retreated into a deadline and a deliverable and productivity. But now that I know how it feels like, I think I can try to recreate the same type of context. And maybe next time I can practice my resistance and resilience to deadlines. And maybe I will not deliver something in the next artistic residency. So this is my work ahead. My work ahead is to keep challenging the format, but to keep practicing being centered in this care and solidarity. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Lorena, do you want to share something of
I
your
want
own?
you to share something with my whole heart, please.
Well, maybe to say that we had a reform edition some years before this one, and that one was in the framework of a bigger European grant, which allowed us to give away to 5 or 6 organizations a 5,000 euro grant to just for their organization to rethink whatever they needed to rethink in their own program. You can say it organizational development, but it was simply about do what you feel you never have money or time to address. And this organization mainly chose to focus on team dynamics. And during this time, the question that we were working with was always the same: how we can rethink the way in which we work, how we can create spaces of a little bit more care, where we can a little bit shake off the internalized pressures, because we have been complaining in the morning about the pressures coming from outside. But I think also one of the things that we witnessed in the dynamics that have been shared already in the smaller safe group was to kind of expose to each other how we are internalizing these pressures, how we feel guilty. We just before the deadline, we go into the imposter syndrome to almost 100% intensity, just because we are so used to delivering something, and I feel that what I'm done is not really exactly that thing, you know, and we just have to be kindly to each other and say, but that's exactly the point, you know. So I think we just had, you know, this is the platter of formats through which we tried to see, to test what could work in a different way. You know, there's a lot of stories that do not sound, and I'm so grateful that you were also, you know, generous in painting a nice picture. I agree with what Ioana said. It was a safe and frictionless space. I think we all longed for that, but it wasn't the easy process, and it was and I think it's not still. And for instance, it's still for me a question, a research, like a program designer, it's still a question, what do people really need? Like, for instance, for this call for one-on-one sessions, we had such a big response. We had 60 meetings for 60 individuals. Well, each one had 2 or 3 meetings, but the response was a little bit bigger than that. And sometimes for workshops where we thought that the speaker and the topic was so cool, so edgy, so experimental, so little people showed up, and it's sometimes so difficult to understand, are we asking the right question? So it's not an easy process, obviously, absolutely not an easy process. What I'm taking with a lot of humbleness from also the one-on-one sessions, and I echo Milica and Mahir that they were absolutely horizontal sessions. I mean, I've talked to people that are much better prepared professionally than I am, but this need to talk to each other. Actually, we don't have time, I think, for quality discussions, and the fact that you are with someone that actually has such a rich internal life and speak like in a sequence of 3 meetings about each other, and we agree the only convention is that now we are speaking about you. And now we're speaking about your challenges, your nightmares, whatever that is, or your joys. Brought so much richness. I felt it was the most meaningful professional process that I've been through past years, and I swear I do so many meaningful things. So yeah, it's really impressive, and I think it's so simple in a way. We just need to create those spaces where everybody is seen. And I think that's also one of the things that I could notice from these one-on-one meetings, that despite the fact that people put up so much of their lives, like 1 or 2 full-time equivalents in time, I think people feel so unappreciated in the cultural sector. And I think we are a little bit responsible, all of us, for the fact that this is felt like an unsafe space, because people long recognition not only from audiences, which I think they learned how to get, they learn how to read the feedback from their audiences. We kind of long for recognition for our efforts and for our work from our peers, and either we don't have the environments where this type of recognition is being given, or we are not generous enough anymore to give that. And in a way that's sad, you know. And my last thing is how I have this fantasy of having a community for a long time, and tried and failed many times with the Paintbrush Factory and others, bigger and smaller things, with richness. But there's something that's so amazing about a community where you feel 100% trust. And I think for me that's somehow the key ingredient. If we can create places in which we can feel the trust is there, then a lot of things are just aligning. We are fine by the fact that we are actually now speaking about that, and we were supposed to speak about what we talk in the conference. Never mind. But it felt so real that finally something that we could never talk about with peers was, let's talk about that, you know? And that became so meaningful, not only personally but professionally. So, and we started sharing books, we started sharing artistic practices around rituals, and it made it all rich. So, yes, thank you all for that. And you know, and thank you to, and I will do now that. Thank you, AFCN, for, you know, funding this program. And thank you, the European Union, for funding this program. And thank you, the municipality of Cluj for funding this. And thanking us all that we made it possible. And Lorena?
Thank you too. It's a thankful session, in case it wasn't obvious. But in a sense, I feel guilty of what you are saying, the need to deliver, the need to be a bit more maybe specific, and I try to hold myself back. I do believe that the precious thing about doing this is that other people are doing it too. And I would like to, there are people here that are doing it too, in different places, in other cities, in other countries. So I would really like to invite them to talk a bit about what they're doing and to share how they are aligned with what we talked about. Maybe we can start with Anna. She will introduce herself better than I can. You can take mine.
As you, okay. I'm also comfortable doing it from there. Milica, stay with me, please. I don't want to be all. No, everyone left. Thanks. Care and support for each other. Okay, so thank you so much for this conversation. It was really touching, and I could really recognize many of the things that I'm gonna try to also explain now of how we do it. So first of all, I'm Anna. I am speaking today from the perspective of the European Festivals Association, IFA. So IFA has been for more than 70 years now a place for connection between arts festivals and festival makers from all over Europe and beyond. And the conversation about the role of festivals, about their contribution to society, and the artistic conversation has always been at the heart. But since a few years, we heard from the festivals and the people around us the need to speak more about this care and about how can we care more for, the festivals can care more about their communities they serve, but also for their teams and the artists. So all this process, I just want to say, I will mention many times Raritza and Mahir, because all this process also began with them. And we have recently, thanks to the CARE project, managed to create something that we call the Festivals CARE Working Group. We launched a call for our members, and we around 10, 12 festival makers answered to it, and it was an invitation for a space, for a peer learning space that is steered by IFA and accompanied by Raritza and Mahir, but above all is a space for these people to shape a process, shape what they want this to be. So to learn from each other, to learn also from the expertise, also from Raritza and Mahir and other experts, but also to not only come out with a set of outcomes that can serve the whole cultural sector, but also to use these for each other, to share struggles, to support each other, to find comfort on each other. And I recognize a lot what you were saying. I wrote, it feels weird to practice care and solidarity, and I could only think, like, the first meeting we had with this group, the question was like, but what do we want? What do we need to deliver afterwards? And yeah, we want to, as much as possible, because still, of course, we are facing these structural limits, this funding system in which we coexist, but we want to offer as much as possible the freedom to practice this care in this group. And yeah, I just maybe can say how we are working a bit. So they express the need to meet monthly, and we are doing that, and we are sharing very meaningful conversations that are also thanks to Mahir, added with a layer of expertise after that, with a reflection. And they decided to focus on 3 main topics. So we have mainly tackled the first one, because this is only been happening for a few months, which is how to care for the caretaker, which is something that we were also talking about this morning. Then also accessibility, how these festivals can reach the communities and the people that maybe don't often come to their festivals. And how can we better collaborate with the health system? How can we create this relation? So I think I can say a bit of what emerged from these conversations, which has a lot to do with what had been shared. and that while the working conditions and yeah, the system is far from ideal, as we have been talking, there is this sense of purpose and our connection with one another. And throughout these monthly meetings, there is a relationship that is being built and a trust that is being built. And that by building this awareness, we also can learn how to take care of each other better. And that caring for ourselves and for each other is not separate from the artistic mission. So it is actually what allows us to keep creating this belonging and this meaning through culture. And yeah, I think that's a bit what I try to spread. I hope it was clear a bit, more or less, what we are trying to create. But yeah, then just to mention that at IFA, so we have many different projects, but we are trying, thanks to the CARE project, to gradually make these insights from this group and what we are practicing with this group flow into other activities. So for example, we have a project that is called the European Festivals Fund for Emerging Artists, and these are residencies also. So we try to open also conversations to the broader group of artists and festivals that we serve to reflect on well-being on before and after these residencies. We also try to offer platforms such as our annual conference for people to come together and to exchange on this, and also to link to policy making at the European level. So this to give this visibility, to give visibility to these practices, so it can also maybe make a change at the level of policy, the European level. So I think that's it. Thank you.
I will also, but I don't know, Marta hears me, and I will also invite her.
What happened to your microphone?
My microphone is a symbol of how my energy throughout the day is fading. But
Okay. Yeah? Okay. Okay, can I join you? Yes. Okay, so I will jump in with European Capital of Culture situation because I represent Lublin, which would be capital of 2029. And in the frames of this program that we are hopefully implement, I'm responsible for the format of Social Space for Cultural Resilience, and this is the format that actually we started to develop while I was in Oulu on the conference, and we met Rarica because I took part in the pitching session and I introduced the idea, and at the moment we were in the application phase, so we didn't know that we will have the title yet, and I was talking about what to do when people are fed up with culture and they are so like stressed out and they can't do any kind of creative things anymore because they are like worn out. And then Rarica approached me and she told me about reform that already was existing for a year. And it was super interesting, and I remember that many different people from European Capitals of Culture also joined the conversation, and we started to build a kind of consortium to find how are we treating this very important, level of our work that was, I think, a little bit neglected before, connected with care, with well-being, but also with the conditions of our work as cultural operators, and not only. And it was just the beginning. But then the project started to evolve, and in the application it was divided into two parts. We have Safe Haven. This is a part of our application that stands for all that is connected to human rights, human well-being, and our conditions working in culture. And Social Space for Cultural Resilience is one of the mode, and the other one is Safe Space. And we talked about it last time with my friend who is responsible for Safe Space. because now we are in the moment of implementing all the projects that we wrote as a kind of ideas in the application. So social space is connected with culture and uses the modes of culture with artistic expression modes to build up some resilient formats and understand how we can be, I don't know, how we can survive. And it is needed not only because we are cultural workers, but also because our application was very participatory at the moment of creating the idea. And we wanted to build it like that because Lublin was in a very specific situation of being a city very near the border with Ukraine, and we were very close to Ukrainian cities just from the beginning of full-scale invasion, and we were supporting each other, and we were very close. Also, we were very close to Lviv in the moment of their candidacy. Lviv didn't get the title of European Capital of Culture 2020-2030, but still we are planning to do some kind of plan B just for them to stay with these ideas that they were working on before. So this situation with Ukraine also made this kind of transition when it comes to our social tissue in a way, because our social organism changed dramatically. I mean that Lublin used to be a multicultural city decades before, like centuries before, in I don't know, medieval ages, in Renaissance ages. But then it started to be super monocultural. And after the war, and maybe even few years before, something dramatically changed because many people started to come to Lublin again, and we felt like we are really a multicultural city indeed. There are many people from different countries coming to Lublin to building their own diasporas, and they are coming from different continents. And not only because of the universities, because we have 9 universities, 4 private and 5 public, but also because this is a really convenient place on the border, and marginal places have always this value of being very hospitable, like it's easy to go there, you know, because it's on the margin. So people feel more eager to be there. They feel more safe. And then the war situation also built this another level of multiculturalism, that we have 1/3 of Ukrainian people, refugees, and also Belarusian dissidents. So it also made us thinking that we have to do something about it. It's not only about our resilience, it's about rebuilding the whole society in a way. So this application that I mentioned, it was built as a participatory model. It was built to somehow create the identity, to define the identity of this new society that we are facing in. And this program that I'm telling you about, the social space for cultural resilience, is connected with this new society, but also there is also a need of creating different formats of how to survive in the world, of crisis, different crises, of war on the next to the border, and with all this difficult life circumstances that we are facing in, just because this is the times that we are living in. And the idea of social space for cultural resilience is to mix artistic toolkit connected with movement, with visual arts, with performative arts, with this psychological reflection on it. So it would be very intersectional, and we started already to do this. We started in a format of workshops and conversation and open tables, and we are planning to do a seminar at the beginning of next year to research on what we have and how we want to develop this project. It would be very, this artistic part would be very important in this. And social and safe space is more dedicated into professionalize artistic workers, culture operators, and equip them within some kind of supervision when it comes to their own spheres of acting. So it's about workshops for people, how be more sustainable in their work field, and how to help each other, how to survive in this own professional mode. So these are two formats that we are developing, and I'm super happy to see how other European Capital of Culture are developing their own modes, because every time I'm visiting evaluation conferences of European capitals, I feel that burnout is the most common thing that people are mentioning. And like, after all these 5 years or 6 years, people are older than, you know, than it can be imaginable. And of course they are very happy that they could do it, because they are, sorry for this generalization, but still I think that I have a right to say that, that it was the most important adventure of their lives, but at the same time it was the very, very super stressful situation that takes a lot of energy to rebuild themselves. So I think that on the level that we are now in, I would like to think about some format that can prevent us from this, because I want us to learn on this, you know, experiences of other European capitals, and we already had so many of them. So. So yes, this is the beginning of the journey when it comes to social space for cultural resilience, and I hope that in few years I can say something, like you said, just about reform, and maybe we'll have some more conclusions to share. So thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone who contributed today. I like, this level is very, very low, and this level is high, and this level is bearable. On this type of scale, where is your energy right now? Is that okay? So we are around low bearable. Okay, we have around half an hour to go, 40 minutes max. But I wanted to ask if there are questions from the room, or if there are conversations that you see the potential of. Okay, just a conclusion to how Marta ended her presentation. If we tricked you into having reached conclusions with reform, I think I did a good job at lying, because we didn't. And I think there is some degree of charm into not finding answers per se. We did see what doesn't work, or we did see what makes it difficult, but I don't think the recipe will come very soon. I think it's just another type of grinding process, which is grinding towards feeling safe, grinding towards understanding and accepting wellness and well-being, and grinding towards being happy, or joyful, or satisfied, or not being scared of not being sad. But yeah, I think it's very important to invest in those kind of processes and to not lose hope, which is the other chronic disease that the cultural sector faces from where I look at it. So maybe I face that. Anyway, I'm not sure if we should or we shouldn't. We should take a 5 minutes break, or we shouldn't. Larissa said we shouldn't. Because we go into the last part of what reform meant, and that is the artistic residencies. And we have with us in the room the artists that were involved in the artistic process for the past months. And there is Selma Dragoș that I invite forward, and this Mirela Ivanciu, Oana Hodade. You know yourselves, people. Come on, Mihai Păcurar. Don't be scared. Veda Popovici. I think Alice Ionescu is missing, but you'll be there to see her artwork later today. Be brave.
Everybody fights for the chairs and
for the chairs on the side.
They seem more comfortable because your feet are on the ground. I think here you're dangling.
I was joking. I was joking in the morning that if I climbed those chairs, I will need support to get off of them. So I understand perfectly. Does everyone? You can take a mic, and then one mic can be here, and then so everyone. Hi guys. I think it's just nice for you to talk a bit about what, I'm tired, sorry. I know you are too. Talk a bit about your processes within the residency, and mainly how did this exploration connect to the topic of translating what work in the cultural sector means into an artistic project. Because the residencies, just to make a very short context introduction or presentation, what we wanted was to bring artists into a sort of creative process where they can address work in the cultural sector or aspects of work in the cultural sector. And they did so in various formats, from the oniric universe of the cultural worker to conversations in the garden or documenting personal processes. And I think it's valuable to see how each of these exploration materialized. And then I think the other layer that is valuable that we can maybe touch upon is how did this exploration impact you personally while doing it? So if it brought something new, if it brought a reflection, or if it did anything anyway. Who wants to start? We know who doesn't want to start. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Sure, I can start. So, first of all, I took some notes about what was mentioned earlier, and kind of what Marius said about the pressure to deliver. That's somehow answers to the second part of the question. And also speaking about what we do, I also felt it as a big part of the process I did during the residency with Selma. And also somebody mentioned, actually a lot of people mentioned feeling safe. And I think what I realized during the residency is that many times feeling safe means doing things the way you are used to. So if you're used to putting pressure and just being stressed, then that's what feeling safe sometimes means. So we started the process in the residency from this idea of dreams, and we're curious about what's the content of the people that dream about their work. It started for me from a personal experience. Long story short, my father told me about a dream, a recurrent dream. He's now retired. And he told me about a recurrent dream that he has about a boss he had like 40 years ago, which was really stressful for him. And he still dreams about this person. He still dreams that he's young, in his 30s, and this guy appears in his dreams, and he's still stressing him. And I really was really touched by this dream he had, and wondered. And then I thought about my dreams about. My background is as a performer, and oftentimes I dream about that. So just missing cues or not being prepared for something I have to do. So I was just curious what kind of feelings actually reflect in the dreams that cultural workers or artists have about their work. So this was the starting point. And we did some, we thought of course, talking to people about their experience, and we did some interviews, and we were mainly focused on the content of the dream. And actually many people said, you know, I don't really have dreams about, I don't really dream, or I don't really remember my dreams, or I don't really remember or have dreams about work. But then we talked, and apparently dreams appear about this. We also were curious about the general content of the dreams, like what kind of elements appear, water or nature, or like how do people generally dream. But I was mainly interested in like the feelings that appear there in their dreams, and feelings or thoughts actually about maybe themselves or the work they do. So this was the research part, and then I started working on my own project, and started to feel really stressed about working on my own. And although it's not a production, I felt like it is a production of something. And I guess that's what my safe space is, like doing how can I be relaxed in just trying some things during a residency, but with the thought that I have to present something, how can I just take it as it is? So it was really stressful actually for me, this work in the residency. I think probably most stressful thing, which was not really intended, I guess. But then it was also very challenging in this idea that I feel stressed, and how do I like step back from the stress, and how do I deal with this, knowing that it's also just reflecting on my process. And I didn't have dreams about work during this period while I worked. I did have a very interesting dream last night, but it's not about work at all. I don't think. I think I'm good with what I said.
Okay.
There's no rule.
Yeah. So I'm Mihai, and I generally identify myself as an artist, but I also started to work in a garden a few years ago. So I'm starting to identify myself as a gardener somehow. And I started to identify with the rhythm of the garden, with the rhythm of the ecosystem that is present there. And I started to become part of the dynamics of power in the garden. And I started to pay attention to these things. So I think I took advantage of this residency to branch out maybe the residency towards a few fellow artists. So I took the money, I split it in 4 ways between myself and 3 other artists, and I sort of been trying to not to write too many rules. I said, let's meet in the garden for the duration of the summer and the autumn. Let's see what happens. Let's see if you guys come into a sort of contact or relationship with the garden, be it like a plant or a concept. And let's see what happens. Let's not make any rules apart from let's try to see each other once a week. And 2 of them are here. You've seen them already and listened to Marius and Ioana. The 3rd one is Geza. I don't think he's present today. And I chose them precisely because I knew they had these specific, really special views towards the ecosystem of that we all work in. And I chose Geza because I saw him in another residency, and I thought I really liked his emotional and innocent approach to what he was doing at that precise moment. So I think in the bubble of the garden, things worked out really well. So for those 2 hours a week, things were amazing. Because we didn't really ask anything from each other. We were just there. We just listened, talked, ate, maybe did some work in the garden. Not too much though. And I think the best thing now at the end, by the way, the garden was abandoned a month ago. So because September and October came, so nobody had any time to go to the garden anymore. But while we were there, I think some things showed up. And I think for me, the number one thing is that I think we need these kind of spaces. I think it would be nice to have this sort of space that doesn't ask anything of you. You just have to be present and see what happens. And hopefully this sort of place will exist, that people can come and go whenever they please, and they come in contact with something that operates under a different set of rules than the ones that we operate every day, something that is not transactional, that doesn't require a deadline or a work to be finished. Although there are loads of other responsibilities to be met in the garden. Outside of this bubble of these 2 hours a week, I fear that this exercise put even more pressure on the other 3 guys and on myself as well, because the 2 hours a week came on top of everything else we have to do. But maybe just in spite of that, I think the experiment was a success, because we somehow connected and found a place to just to be there, not just to listen to each other, and just to, for example, I wasn't able to talk about my project in the garden for almost a month, and that was okay. So at some point, the bubble burst, and something happened, and it happened because we talked one evening about it. So time, I think it's really important to give ourselves time, so that we find these safe spaces that don't require us that don't ask from us to comply to a certain schedule. Yeah, that's it. I think we can talk about it
Later on, yes.
Later on, okay.
So I'll try to pick it up from you. I don't know if this is...
It works.
Thank you. So I'm Mirela, and I know everybody's very tired, including myself. First of all, I would say that I'm grateful that I could reflect on what means work of an artist for all the last 5 months. And I took my take on it, and I think I would start with 2 things. One of them, that it was for me a reflection of what means my own work and other visual artist work, which was the focus of my residency. But also it for me, it's a reflection on slowing down. It's an advice to slow down, because I would say, I would put it in a bit dramatical ways, that we don't have to hurry up, because nothing expects us except the fact that at some point we will die. So it's no point of not slowing down. So what I've done in this direction was to have two different complementary takes. One of it was to reflect on my own work as a visual artist, which was journaling around 18 different problems which I had to solve in order to survive as an artist, and which usually I have to solve in order to survive as a visual artist. And journaling I transferred in a codified way, in a very simple code, color code, into an object, into an embroidery, which is very labor-intensive object. So for every one problem which I had to solve each week, I had to sew a particular square, which was a color, depending on the code of colors which I defined, which was based on my usual palette, color palette. Depending on this code of color, I realized basically an abstract image of squares, where each image represents a problem. A problem which was basically solved or not solved, or in a neutral state, depending, and which was assigned a color depending on my emotional state in relationship with how much I could succeed or not succeed. So you'll be able to see it a bit later, probably, if you come to the OM space, that particular abstract image. And then I decided to open it up towards the community, towards a group of artists who wanted to join me and to reflect on the same problems. And we had a workshop in Bucharest in September, where we discussed around the same questions in a day, and we brought to some conclusions which, in a funny way, after one afternoon when we discussed, were pretty similar with the other ones, which were discussed already today in the morning. The fact that we need individual resilience in order to survive as artists, and all the other problems which were already solved, well, discussed today, not solved, sorry. Unfortunately, not solved. Yes. And what I would further say is that if we slow down, we are closer to possible solution of survival. That's what I believe, and that is one of my main conclusions after all these 5 days of work. Yeah, and I would leave it here. I will pass it to Veda further.
Or unless you want to go, or no? Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Veda. I'm based in Bucharest, and I am very grateful for being part of the residency and for having been part, and for coming here and meeting old friends and making new ones. My work in the frame of the residency started from a parallel reflection on labor and creativity, and because I, besides my art practice, I also do a lot of and have done a lot of research and theory. It was a kind of like an easy slope to fall on and do a bit of research on a specific niche, which is collaborative work in the arts, and how working together facilitates creativity or does not, and what are the limitations and the potentialities of collaboration, collaborative, team, group, all of that kind of like ensemble format in art. And my main focus was on visual art or contemporary art. But I also looked at curatorial groups and other types of teams, maybe teams that work temporary and create a festival and things like that. And so I looked, I started, like my sources were first and foremost my own experience as an artist who has been part of several art collectives. And then I also have been part of many more activist collectives, which for the purpose of this residency and this research actually is like there's a lot of overlap between the two experiences. And so this is like the first source. And then I had a lot of discussions with comrades and colleagues that have done work collaboratively or even do so now throughout the years. And so, and then I really felt also like the need to create a bit of historical dimension. And so in the end, this is the result. I made a zine, and it's in Romanian, and it's called Împlinire, tovărășie și treabă, despre grijă și recunoaștere în munca colectivă în artă, which translates basically into more or less something like fulfillment or success, comradeship and work, about care and recognition in collective labor in the arts. And in the zine, basically I'll just go really fast through it. I'm looking at, there's an essay about like a historical, a critical perspective, about like well, the myth of the artist, the genius artist, and the myth of individuality in contemporary art, and how that is still a landmark today and creates like a lot of reality and a lot of material conditions in the field. One subchapter that's really interesting for me is called Complicitățile care persistă, which translates to the complicities that persist. And it is about the way, even though art collectives throughout history have been quite disruptive and have been the place of rebels and the space for contesting the status quo of the art world or of society, etc., etc. There is a lot of appropriation by art institutions, by structures of power within these fields. There's a lot of appropriation of these methodologies of collaboration, of working together, and what they entail. And so this is kind of an interesting thing. And it also includes a little guide, the zine. And in the guide, basically, well, I mean, it's kind of like, it's a set of tools, actually. It's not really a guide. And it's called for an emancipatory together or togetherness. We need intention, right? So basically the premise is that just being together, just assembling, just having some sort of collaborative work does not automatically mean that you are some you're doing some sort of disruptive work. So to do disruptive work and to have that emancipatory ambition, you need to have intention. And for that intention to happen, it needs to be to actually be translated into practices, right? So yeah, there are like 10 points. For example, one is about acknowledging asymmetries of privileges. Another one is about recognizing invisible labor, including emotional labor. Another one is deciding on a decision-making process. Another, yeah, like stuff like that. Oh, and another one is about burnout and the crisis of creativity. And so these are all tools meant for collectives in the arts, either artists or other kind of collectives, to like actually implement them in their own groups, in their own assemblies, so that they have a more emancipatory development of their work. And I've also included in the zine a very personal and very confessional text about burnout that I wrote 2 years ago and was published initially on Kutra. And yeah, and it's a very kind of detailed story about my experience going through burnout and how I kind of survived. And at the end, and I'm gonna stop here, at the end there is also something very, very useful, I thought. There's a set of resources for unionizing and syndicalization in the arts that I've compiled from like years of kind of like being in these kinds of environments. And yeah, it's just they're like resources from other groups, other places, other cities, other countries, other contexts, where people have like tried to do something that works and that has actually some results. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Selma, now is your time.
Yes, I was looking at how I ended up on the empty side, and my brain was making sense, making a story about all this. And this is very much what I felt was the work during this, for me, during this residency. So we started with Oana, we started talking about how dreaming of work is a special kind of dream, as she already said about her father. For me, for a few years, I've been going back again and again to Bullshit Jobs by David Graeber, trying to simplify it, to make it into a show for children. So last year I had this residency in Timișoara, and I tried to make a story for kids, to make the concepts from Bullshit Jobs into a story that they can understand. And we ended up with this village that was called Târgu Ocupat, the busy village, busy town. And it was very pleasant for me and very nice, but then as we turned towards adults with Oana and we had interviews about work and dreaming of work with other artists, I started wondering how far I want to take the resemblance between what the brain does during dreaming and what I do as an artist. And there are two types of work that we do for a dream. First is generating the content during our sleep, and I think that's quite comfortable and it just comes. You're not in control, so I associate that with comfort and a break. But then there's the other type of work when we wake up, when we narrate the dream, when we make sense of the images that we create during the night. And I was thinking about these two types of work and how to make them into a deliverable. And I just realized how tired I am. And I was also a beneficiary of the mentorship sessions, which were very useful also in looking at how tired I am of being an artist, of how I wish I was not an artist so that I could make art again. Preparing this deliverable, I was oscillating between just making art in my basement, throwing things in the image, and then really laboring, trying to make it into something that will make sense to an audience in a conference room. What I wanted to get was that also looking at this, this is the image and this is the story I'm telling about it. I realized that dreams are not this necessarily this beneficial thing that we have, because sometimes, for me, dreams work as a place where I can unload the shame and the sadness and the humiliation, and then it's easier not to act upon them when I'm awake. So I decided that somehow I should bring this to an audience. So this is an advertisement for tomorrow, that I am really curious if there is place for true shame and for really humiliating secrets in a very clean, well-lit room like this one.
To be seen tomorrow. Thank you very much to all of you for being here and for trusting us into the process. Thank you very much to all of you for having the... Is it me? No, it's not me, it's the coffee machine. For having the patience to go through the whole day with us. If you feel like you have any questions now, the room is yours. If not, I would declare the day officially ended. Silence as happiness. At 5 o'clock, those of you who have completed the form, well, it's a tiny space. At 5 o'clock, we move to a tinier space for everyone, where we get to see the artistic projects that have been developed in the format that they decided to present it. So let's not think about them as deliverables. Let's think about them as processes that caught some shape. And I think it will be very, very nice to connect what they actually said with what things actually look like. Tonight we will experience part of Oana's dream, and then tomorrow Selma will come here to help us transform this conference space into a common dream, collective dream. Basically, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you also do. And that's basically it. Thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of the day.